this story time will be about a best friend, someone I'm no longer close with or have any connection with. So sit back, relax, and hopefully this story will be entertaining in some way for you. I think I'm going to start by telling you all how I met this person. During my 12th grade year, so my senior year in high school, my grandparents told me that they were going to be moving to a new city and that would require me to attend a new school. And you can imagine that I was upset. I had established a routine at my previous school. I had my friends. I felt comfortable and safe. Why would you move me during my senior year out of all years? And so my grandparents, they were just saying, well, we're sorry, there's nothing that we could do. This is what's best at this time. And so I was just like, okay, whatever. Obviously, I have no choice but to go. And at the time, I was really worried because I was also an introvert. I felt like it took me years to make the friends that I had at that time. And so I thought to myself, well, if I have to go to a new school, I'm just going to stay to myself. It's senior year. A lot of these people are going to be clicked up. They're not going to want another person, a random person in their group. These people probably have been knowing each other for years. So what chance do I have? And so for like the first month, I did everything by myself. I studied by myself, walked around by myself, I ate by myself, everything. And I can honestly say that I was content with that because I had my friends. Although I lived in a different city, I still got to hang out with them from time to time, and that was good enough for me. But I think around the second or third month of attending that school, my memory is a little fuzzy, I'll be honest. I had an elective class. It was an aerobics class. And to be honest, a lot of us just took it so that we could sit around. Because the teacher was also a coach and she really didn't care. She also looked at it as a free period, if I'm being honest. But one day she decided to be serious. And she told us that we needed to come up with some type of exercise routine. She said we could either pair up or do it separately. And so I was watching people team up and I was thinking to myself, like, I can come up with some nonsense on my own. I don't really care. As I was walking up to the teacher, I saw this random girl just sitting off to the side. And she was just looking lost. And I laughed a little bit because I was like, you can tell she doesn't want to be here. I saw her talking to other people. It looked like they were making fun of her. She told me later on that they were just talking, but I don't know, the way that they were talking to her was kind of condescending. But anyway, I walked up, they walked off, and I introduced myself, and I said, hey. I told her my name. She told me hers, and I asked her, was she going to do a routine by herself or in a group? And she said, by herself. And I said, I think I'm going to do the same. And then we didn't talk after that. A few days had passed, and we had a moment where the coach slash teacher wanted us to walk around the gym. And so we started walking together, talking, getting to know each other. And what I learned about her is that she's a fresh strict. She couldn't have a phone or anything. And she pretty much just attended school and went home. And after that, we hung out all the time. We sat and had lunch together. I can't remember if we had another class together. I feel like we did, but I know for sure we had aerobics. We couldn't hang out outside of school because, again, her mom. But I felt a connection with her. She was pretty cool. She was very quirky. She wasn't up to date with the latest hip hop and R&B, but she loved it. And it was funny because she would sing the songs nobody even thought about anymore. But I liked that she was unique. And so I thought to myself, well, at least I have one friend before I graduate from this place. Fast forward, I graduated and we lost contact. She didn't have a phone. I was moving out of state to start college. We didn't end on bad terms. It was just, I wish you the best of luck and, take care. Several years later, we end up adding each other on Snapchat. I think this was around 2021 or 2022. And again, I'm sorry for not remembering the dates. My memory is not the best in terms of dates, but I do know it was around that time. And I remember it was around Valentine's Day because she had posted being in a hotel room and it was covered in balloons and flowers and things like that. And I was thinking to myself as I was watching, who is this? I couldn't remember her name based off the username. And then when I saw a little bit more, pictures and stuff, I said, oh, okay, I know who this is. I didn't even know we added each other on Snapchat. And so I messaged her and I said, I'm so happy for you. Like, I don't know if you remember me, but I'm happy for you. It seems like things are going well for you. That's pretty cool that somebody has done something like this. I wish somebody could decorate a room for me. And I laughed. And she was like, oh, thank you. I appreciate it. Yeah, it's been a while since we've spoken. But it didn't go the way you think it went. And I was like, what do you mean? And after that, it's like no time had passed. She vented to me about the guy and the terrible things he had, said to her. And she wanted to still pursue a relationship with him. And I would talk to her and vent to her too. But a lot of the times it was her with that guy. He lived in the state I was living in, that I currently live in. And she was still back home. And what had happened was he had flew to my home state to spend time with her. And then he went back home. And she still wanted to pursue something with him. And I told her, I said, that's going to be hard because you all are in two different states. So what are you going to do? And I just felt like there was a lot of push and pull regarding that situation. And I wouldn't say it was draining me at that time, but I already felt exhausted with constantly having to offer space for her about someone who was disrespecting her. Like, for an example, he would ignore her calls and texts, but then he would post on social media being out at the bar with his friend. And then he had a friend he was roommating with who was disrespectful towards her. And when she would tell me these things, I'd be like, girl, like, where's your self-respect? You deserve a lot more. You should talk to him, set boundaries, whatever. And she would from time to time, but then she'd fall back into that trap. Well, after a couple of months, she stopped talking to him, and I was like, thank God, like, you could do so much better. But then right away, she met elsewhere. And these people were fully aware too. And she was just saying, like, I would like to move out there one day. Who knows, maybe I might just do that. But I'm just meeting people, I'm just talking to them, it's nothing serious. And I'm like, okay. But then it was like each time she met someone new, she fell in love very quickly. And like with the second guy, he would bring girls over, would deliberately tell her, and then she'd get upset, and I'd have to listen to her rant all day. And I'd be like, why would you want to be with a guy who is literally telling you his negative intentions? Like, for instance, he talked about how one of his best friends were going to stay for damn near a week, and that if he's not available, that's why. Come on, you all, let's be honest. Why was that? Because that was a girl he was messing with, and he did not want her to interfere. But it felt like I was talking to a brick wall. She just kept going and going and trying to pursue with him, and eventually it didn't work. So this happened a couple more times with different people, even girls, because she is bisexual and I never had a problem with that. But I want to say, about a year later, she started talking about wanting to potentially move to my current state. She talked about how being at home with her mom was suffocating. Her mom was still very strict. Her mom was so strict to the point where she didn't want her to move out, barely wanted her to get a job. She just wanted my friend to be there with her. And so I would tell my friend, like, hey, well, you have to live your life eventually. Like, at some point, you were able to go to college and graduate, and that was during the time that we weren't talking. But even then, she got to live in a dorm for like a very short time, and then she had to come back home. But anyway, I digress. As I was saying, that next year, she was very serious and consistent with saying she wanted change, she wanted to grow, she wanted to move. And so she told me she had known this girl who she was friends with at that school. I'm guessing it was after I had left because I didn't know this person. And she was saying how that person also lives in my current state, and she was considering moving with her. And I said, are you sure? Because you've mentioned that it's been years since you've seen this person. And I just want you to be careful, because people can be cool, but once you live with them, it could be something totally different. And so she weighed her options. But as the days progressed, I will say her mom was very, very overbearing. And another thing about her mom would call her names, put her down, all type of stuff. And that really used to upset me, because I had never heard something so horrendous like that. Like, I would actually be on the phone with her and hear those things, and I felt like that is what also brought us closer. I felt like I needed to protect her in a way. But anyway, within that year, I would say maybe mid-year, that next year, what I was talking about, she ended up moving with that girl. Okay, so she moves here, and I'm really excited about it. I'm like, okay, you live a couple of hours away, but we can make it work. I can figure it out. And I was just really excited because there was someone from my home state here. What are the odds, right? Like, we've grown up together in a way. We had that year of connection. We fell off for some time. Years later, we connected again. Then she moved to the state, and I'm just like, this is perfect. Because at that time, I didn't really have many connections. And so my thing was, now we can be closer together. She don't have to think about her mother. We can have fun. We can, find ways to navigate life together. so many thoughts surfaced in my head, but it did not go that way at all. Honestly, when she moved here is when things really started to change. I was telling her, like, hey, let's link up. I have a car. I can drive to you. I know you can't get to me. You don't have a vehicle just yet. And she was just being really weird. She was like, my friend, she doesn't know you. She's uncomfortable, so she may not want you to come to her house. That's not the weird part. I'm fine with that. But I was like, well, I can always come and get you and bring you to my house. I'm fine with that. Or come and meet you at a park. It's not a problem. And she was like, I'll let you know. And so some weeks had passed. And then that's when she finally hit me back again and was like, my friend is actually going to bring me to you. And I'm going to stay a couple days with you if that's okay. And I was like, yeah, like for real, that's cool. That's what I want. And so the friend brought her. And she came, and it was a little awkward at first because, again, we hadn't seen each other, like really seen each other since high school. And we had a good time. You know, my daughter's dad and I, we showed her around a little bit, and she was able to try some barbecue, and her and I stayed up late and watched TV and everything. We had a good time. But then that next day, the friend started like blowing up her line. I mean, like blowing it up. And I was like, what's going on? Like, why is she calling you so much? Shouldn't you answer? She was like, oh no, I'm good. Don't worry about it. And I said, no, what if she's having like an emergency or something? And my friend was like, okay, I'll answer it. She goes to the bathroom, and I'm thinking to myself, okay, why don't I just go to my room so she can come back in the living room and talk? Like, that's weird. Maybe she'll explain to me. If she doesn't, then that's her business. So then she comes back out the bathroom. She's off the phone, and I was like, is everything okay? And my friend is looking at me awkward, and she's like, well, I'll be honest with you. I didn't know how this was gonna go, so I told her to call me. And if I said things had gone wrong, she was going to come and pick me up. And I'm not gonna lie, like at first, I felt some type of way because I'm like, you should know me. Like, I know this is our first time seeing each other again. But if that was the case, we could have just done a public outing. You go your way, I go my way. But I got over it quickly. I was just like, well, I do have to be mindful of her safety. I might have done the same thing. I don't know. So then she stays another day, and then she goes back home. I want to say maybe within the next 2 weeks, it was hell. Excuse my language, but it was. And what I mean by that is she would call and text me all hours of the day and night because, for one, she was struggling to find a job. Of course, that was the rule. I was explaining to her, you can't expect to stay at someone's house for free and not chip in some way. Now, she did have a savings at that time, but what I didn't know was it was quickly fading because she was paying for expensive meals and things like that for her and the roommate. Now, remember, I didn't know that at that time. So anyway, she was looking for a job. And then also, while she was looking and her roommate was taking her money, the roommate was also acting weird towards her. You know, clocking every time she ate something, making comments about when she was gonna cook or clean or something, just all type of stuff. And so my friend was venting to me about it, and I would tell her, like, just hang in there, you'll find a job, you'll figure it out. You know, make sure you're not spending your money and all that. Well, then a month goes by, and I remember my friend she was like, she just sprayed me with roach spray. Like, she literally sprayed me. Oh my God, something's gonna happen to me. And I was like, what do you mean? What happened? And my friend was like, I was just asleep. I was minding my business. And the night before, she was slamming doors and making weird comments, being on the phone with her friends. And they were laughing. And I know they were talking about me. And my friend said I wasn't saying anything. I was letting her do her thing because I know I'm in her house. But then next thing you know, she woke me up out of my sleep, sprayed me with roach spray, and was talking about how I don't clean up and how the house is dirty, and that she was leaving to go on a business trip. It was either a business trip or to go to her family's house. I can't remember. I want to say family's house, now that I think about it. But anyway, the roommate had left for 2 weeks. And this is when I told my friend, okay, well, this is too much. Like, what if it had gotten physical? Why don't you just come and stay with me? And so my friend was like, I don't like that area where you live. I think I'm gonna stay here. This is where I've always wanted to stay. And I was saying to her, like, you have never lived here. How don't you like a place you've never been? And I was telling her it's slower paced. You can be with me, someone who for sure wouldn't spray roach spray on you, who wouldn't cuss at you and act crazy. So just come here. And she was like, oh, I think I'm just gonna stick it out. No worries. And I said, okay, if you want to. But then once the roommate, the friend came back, it was still problem after problem. Yelling, you need to give me money. If you're gonna be here, you need to pay most of the rent. All types of crazy things. To the point where finally my friend broke down and was like, I don't got no money left. And I said, what do you mean? You came here with a decent amount. And she was like, well, when I was ordering food and stuff, I would have to order for her too. When we were low on cleaning supplies, I would have to buy it. And I was like, but she was working. You could not work out anything with her. She's working. And she was like, well, I felt like I needed to do these things. And so it was stressing me out. And I was like, you know what? If you're going to stay there, stay there. Because I'm over it. Like, you do what you need to do. So what I didn't know was, while all of this was going on, my friend, she was on dating apps. And so at this time, she decided she wanted to lean towards women. Like I said, she's bisexual. She goes back and forth. I just support her no matter what. And so she had met this woman that was, I think, a couple years older than me. Because remember, we have like a 3-year age difference, if I can remember, 3 or 4. But the woman was older than me by a couple of years. And so the girl was saying, hey, telling my friend, like, hey, why don't you come over here and visit? You can come here for the weekend, hang out with me. Let's vibe together. But I didn't know this. I didn't know all this until afterwards. I'll explain. And so my friend went and hung out with the girl. And I remember my friend calling me, and she's in the bathroom, and she's like, hey, I met this girl online. I'm hanging out at her house. She's cool. I think I like her. I want her. And I'm like, back it up. When did you meet a girl? Like, what is this about? And so then that's when she explained to me that she's been on dating sites and she's trying to vibe and just have a good time while she's out there, especially with what everything was going on. And I was like, but you got bigger fish to fry. Like, you're still looking for a job. So are you sure this is the right thing to do? And she was just like, well, yeah, I'm not going to say it's the right thing to do, but I deserve to have some fun and stuff too. And I was like, yeah, that's true. Well, if you're comfortable with it, then I support it. And so she hung out with, this woman seen me. You know I'd never do anything to you. We've been friends. We actually had, past experiences. But all it took was 2 weeks. And you move in with this random person who could be crazy. And she was just that. I mean, right away, she started one of my friends who paid her rent, and she would put her hands on her if my friend would talk back. And she had this best friend who all of a sudden we found out at a later time she used to date, and the best friend was jealous of my friend, and my friend would always call me or text me. I remember one time the girl had basically assaulted her to the point where she was partly out of the window. And so she called me, and she's running outside, and she's going to her car, screaming and crying, going to the girlfriend's car, And so she's like, oh, I'm in here, I'm gonna call the cops, this is too much. And I'm like, it is too much. Why don't you just come to my house? I will protect you. You will be fine. And my friend is just like, oh no, I'm not ready to leave yet. She said she's sorry, we're gonna talk it out, blah blah blah. And I was like, well, do you need money or anything? And she said, no, I'm fine, I'm good, we're gonna talk it out. But I told her she can't do this again. But still, it happened a few more times. And so that's when my friend was like, okay, I have to get out of this relationship because obviously she's not changing. And I was like, yes, you can do better. But what I didn't know is that my friend happened to still be on those dating sites, and she met another girl, and this girl lived in a different city. And so she met that girl one time and then moved in with her. So you see the pattern, right? It's draining because you don't want to stay with me. You're making excuses like, oh, where I live is terrible. But you have no problem meeting strangers online and within a week or two being in their home. So this last person though, oh, she takes the cake. Oh my goodness, you thought the first and second were bad. Let me get to the third. The third was exactly the same. She was abusive. She was a cheater. She was a liar. Everything in between. She was also trying to force my friend to, work and, get a job and take care of her. And my friend did get a job with this person. And next thing you know, she had talked my friend into renting a PlayStation, a big screen TV, everything you can think of. Remember that. So my friend was paying on all these items on top of other bills and stuff. And the newest girlfriend, so the third person, well, the first girl was a friend, the second girl was a girlfriend, the third one is a girlfriend, so we'll say the second girlfriend. But the third person she had been around, she was working, but after 2 months of them being together, she decided to quit. And that's when she had got on Social Security and was able to get it. But she would only spend a small portion on the rent, and my friend had to cover everything else. And I'd be like, friend, what are you doing? Y'all should be 50-50 at this point. I know you initially came into her home, but you've done your part with getting a job and taking care of essentials. Meanwhile, this girl is spending her money on substances, and she was even able to get food stamps and was selling them, but none of it was going into the home to benefit the both of them. And I was like, yeah, you really need to leave. This is crazy. But she wouldn't leave. And then next thing you know, by that, I want to say 5th or 6th And so my friend was like, we're homeless. I don't know what we're gonna do. And I was like, well, you can come and live with me. It's that simple. Now, I don't know what she's gonna do. I don't like her. She can't stay with me. If she comes around me, I'm gonna fight her. I was very honest. Not proud of that, but I have to keep it real. And so my friend was like, no, I think I'm just gonna stick it out and see. I think we could find a new apartment because I do want to stay with her. And I was like, okay, whatever. But here's the kicker. After we had that conversation, she disappeared for damn near 4 or 5 days. And I started freaking out because I was like, what the heck is going on? Like, I was texting her, I was calling her, she wouldn't respond. But I would see her on social media and I was like, okay, she's good. But if it turns out to be like a week, I'm gonna go to that city and I'm gonna find her. I don't care. But by the end of that week, she finally got back to me and she was like, oh, we moved to an entirely different city. I think it was like 1.5 hours more away from me. So at this point, she was now about 3.5 hours from me. And I'm like, are you kidding me? You're getting further and further. And why did you move out there with someone that's still somewhat a stranger? You don't know everything you need to know about her. And my friend was just like, well, I've always wanted to live in this city and she was down to come with me, so I'm gonna come out here, find a job, but for now I have some money saved and we're just going to live in a hotel. We're gonna pay weekly. Oh my goodness. She would call me from time to time like, hey, can I borrow $20 here, $30 here? And I'll be like, only when I have it because I have a kid, I have things going on, but from time to time, here you go. And so our communication wasn't the best at that time. And it's because, and what I did not know until later, is because they had gotten kicked out of about, I think, 2 hotels because the girl would not quit smoking weed and they would get in trouble for it. And so each time they went to a new hotel, it got higher and higher. And I'm just like, bro, drop that dead weight and come to me. I'm still telling her the same thing. Like, I'm not gonna charge you rent or anything like that. Like, you can just come to me, get yourself together, and if you want to go back out there, do it. But my friend was like, no, I'm gonna stick it out. Like, she came with me, I'm gonna feel guilty. The only way I'll come is if she comes. And I was like, you know what, screw it, do what you do. I don't care. Like, I cared, but I was really just drained. Like, my goodness, how many times can I offer you a place to stay and you deny it? Like, I'm someone who loves love too, but well-being comes first. And this person had no problem with quitting their job, fully depending on you, and then getting income of their own and not helping you. So what do you think would happen in a new city, right? Like, what if you fall short and they don't want to help you? Like, no matter how many times I said it, she was looking for an excuse, putting me on the back burner, and I'm like, whatever. But still, you wanted me to answer my phone at all times of the day or night, answer texts, be available to you all the time. And it really started to become draining. And so I will say, after a month of struggling, she was able to find a job. And they did get an apartment. They found an apartment where all they needed was to show that there was some type of income coming in. And so they moved in. Things were okay for a little bit, but it went back to how it was when they were at the previous location. The girlfriend was able to, get her social security and everything to that location. She wasn't, helping my friend as much. She would give a small portion. Same thing with the food stamps. that she had known from out of state or people that she met there. She would go and hang out everywhere, not tell my friend. And then, oh, the kicker, she met a girl. So my friend's girlfriend started cheating, talking to the girl sexually, hanging out with her while my friend was working 10 to 12 hours a day, all type of stuff. And it got to the point where my friend actually gained the courage to message the girl, and the girl was like, yeah, like she messaged me all the time. And it made sense because my friend had told me a couple times prior to that when she would come home, her girlfriend would hurry up and get off the phone or make excuses for why she needed to stay in the bathroom for a longer time or go for walks at random times of the day or night. So I told my friend, I was like, well, I mean, now that you know, what are you gonna do? Because obviously she doesn't care about you. And it was the same thing. Oh, well, I'm gonna figure it out. I'm done with her. I don't care. But then after a day or two, they were cool again. So basically, it got to a point where TB was involved, where the girl was like putting haymakers on her more consistently. And I think after like the third incident there, that's when she called the police. The police said, hey, she can't come back to this residence anymore. And so the girl left and she went back to where she was originally from. And so my friend was left to take care of all the bills on her own, constantly struggling. And then that's when her focus was mainly on me now. Calling me twice as much, texting me, and she's just like, okay, can you help me from time to time with groceries? That's all I ask. And I'm not gonna lie, at that time, I wasn't working because that's when I had, my health diagnosis, and I was able to stay at home, and I had food stamps. And I would say, yeah, sure, no problem. Here's some food stamps, And when I got a little money coming in, I would give her $20, $30 here or there. Because I forgot to mention too, in those, months of things being better after she got a job of moving to that new place, she was also able to obtain a car so that she can continue to work. So I would help her with gas and things like that. And she just kept having problems left and right. I mean, whether it was, the car, because one thing I would tell you about her, she cannot effing drive. When I tell you she had a brand new 2017, I can't remember the make and model, but she crashed it. She had gotten into like 3 or 4 different accidents. She was having problems needing new tires, things like that. And now I wouldn't help her with those type of things. It would be the more general because I still had to take care of myself and my child at the end of the day. But anyway, it was just draining, having to constantly hold space for her mentally and help her from time to time. And I just felt like after a while, all she needed me for was as a safe haven, but not like a true friend, you know what I mean? Because while yes, in between these things, I was able to confide in her as there were things going on in my relationship at the time that I needed to vent about, and she would listen. It would go back to her needs and what she wanted and what was going on. It just felt very one-sided. And, with the things that she had rented, the PS5, the 70-inch, the girlfriend had pawned the PS5 and then had broke the 70-inch. But Rent-A-Center was like, I don't care, like we still need our money. And so my friend was dodging them. They would come and knock on her door, all type of stuff, and she would cry to me, and I'm just like, why don't you come here? And I know at this point in the story, somebody is probably thinking, wow, you are a very kind or dumb friend, and I get it. It was just having her here in this state brought me duper one deal. I didn't have to go back home, but then I had somebody here that reminded me of home, you know what I mean? So I put up with a lot of the stuff, and this happened for like a year and a half where she was barely paying rent, barely able to fix things on her car, but I will give her her props. She was managing, and within a year she would continue on the dating sites, meet people, things will fall short. I would have to be like her cushion, her safe haven again, talk to her, and I'm just like, something has to change. And then also, and I know I'm going back and forth, so I apologize for that, but her mom was in the mix too, because although she had moved away from her mother would call her all the freaking time, threatening her, like, you need to come back home, you're a failure, you got a degree, you could have done so much better, you're struggling, why are you asking me for money? And I was always on my friend's side, don't get it twisted, but there would be moments where I would tell her, like, hey, if you can't handle living here and you don't want to live with me, then go back with your mom. I agree with her that it may be better not with what she's saying, because it's not right. She's your mother at the end of the day. She should be loving you and supporting you, not downing you the way that she's doing. But my friend would be like, no, the last thing I want to do is go back home. I'd rather stay here and struggle. And I'm just like, okay, whatever. And so she had all those obstacles going on. And honestly, it got to a point where I didn't know how to pull myself out, because my mind kept thinking, history, you know this person, you love this person, not in a romantic sense, but this is someone who you've grown a connection with again. Things can get better at some point, but there were no changes. The icing on the cake was when I ended up meeting my now boyfriend on my birthday, 2024, and she was happy for me when I met him. We were talking, and I didn't know if I really wanted to date him. Things had ended with my daughter's dad, and I was still trying to navigate those feelings and stuff. There was some time in between, though, where I was by myself doing my own thing, focusing on me. But because I had been with him for so long, I was like, I don't know if I'm even looking forward to dating anybody. But as I continued to talk to him, I realized, like, wow, I really like him. He's like me. He's nerdy, he's funny, he's authentically himself, he's weird, because I'm someone who likes to make random noises and things like that. And he embraced every little weird quirk I had, and I'm like, okay, I like him. And my friend was supportive, she was. And so as I told her more and more about him, for like a month or two straight, I kid you not, she was just like, oh, does he have a friend? Does he have a brother or somebody? Because I want somebody like him. And I was like, well, you're not going to find anybody like him, but I'll talk to him and see what he says. So I talked to my boyfriend, and he told me, he was like, well, I have somebody for her that I think that she will mesh really well with. And he told me his characteristics and everything, and I said, okay, sounds like a go. I gave her a picture of him, shared the same information, and she was cool with it too. And so right away, she started playing games with this man. He would text her, it would take her a while to text back. He would call her, and she would just be acting weird, and I didn't know at the time. For like a week straight this was going on, but I didn't know until the next week when she told me, I don't know if I'm feeling him. And I was like, well, why not? And she was like, well, I'm worried know you're struggling and can barely pay bills and stuff. Why would you get a dog? But anyway, she had a dog. She had 2 jobs. Like, the car was, the wheels are about to fall off at this point. Just all type of crazy stuff. And she was like, I just don't have time for him. And I was like, are you kidding me? Like, you harassed me for a good second to find you somebody. And I did just that. And he seems very nice. And she was like, I don't know. I don't think I have time for that. And I said, but you were telling me about some of the good things he's doing, how he is. That's what you deserve. All you had in the past were men and women who did you dirty, always put their hands on you, always take your money, use you. You got somebody who seems nice, that's actually trying to give you the time of day. And she was like, yeah, you're right. But then she continued with the effery. And it's like, oh my goodness, like, is it true that some women just like people that are rude and don't care about you? Because I didn't understand that. And so she basically, because I told her one day, I think this was like, it was going on 3 weeks at this point, and I told her, I called her one day and I said, have you been trying to get to know him? What's going on? And she was like, well, yeah, I've been trying to get to know him, but I don't think we're a good match. And I said, you know what? Just stop effing with him. Leave him alone, because that's not cool. Like, I didn't know that you were going to be this type of person towards him. And she was like, what are you talking about? And I was like, bro, you literally harassed me about finding you someone, and I did just that. And so then she's like, oh, well, I'm just saying, like, you know, I have things going on. And I said, and I know that. That's why I said, are you sure this is what you want to do? And you kept saying, oh, you want what I have, when I told you you weren't going to find what I have, but you could potentially find somebody that's good for you. And so I said, so just talk to him and tell him you're done. You can't handle this right now. And so a couple days had went by, and she calls me and she's like hollering, and she's just like, yeah, I told him and he flipped out on me. And I was like, you can't blame him for how he feels. Like, why would you sit up there and play those games and expect somebody to be cool with you? So she just started randomly like going off on me about my boyfriend, and she was like, you need to stop talking to him. Like, you need to choose a side. You need to choose me or him. And I was like, I'm not picking no side. My boyfriend didn't do anything to you. You were the one who ruined this. And she's just like, I didn't ruin anything. You know, I told you that I couldn't do it. And I said, but look how long it took you to break things off with him, when he was being nothing but honest and authentic with how he felt and what he wanted from you. Like, you know, when it came to wanting to visit and stuff, she had excuses then. She had excuses for everything. And I was like, I'm not breaking up with my boyfriend, nor am I picking a side. I'm telling you what's right, because you know that's the type of person I am. And next thing you know, her and I started yelling at one another, calling each other names. And I was like, you know what? I'll just come to where you are and I'll beat your, because I don't have time for that. You're literally attacking me and talking about me, calling me out my name first. And I was just doing what you wanted. I was trying to help you. And so after that, we hadn't spoken for a couple days. And she had finally hit me back. And she pretended like everything was cool. And I was like, no, in order for us to be cool, you need to apologize to my boyfriend and to me, because you started all this. You started this drama, and I didn't like the way you were talking about him, and he had done nothing to you. Long story short, she never apologized to him. She briefly apologized to me, and I tried to move forward. I'm not gonna lie, I didn't stand on business at that time. And so she would just start acting even more weird. It would take her longer to get back to me. felt like I was like having to chase her more and more, like to get her to text me back. And it had gotten to a point where like she disappeared for a week again. Well, before it was like 4 or 5 days, but this time it was an actual week. And when I finally got a hold of her, she was just like, oh, well, my phone was off, so that's why I didn't like hit you back or anything. And I said, but I saw you on social media for the entire week, and I hit you up, and I even saw that you seen a couple of my messages, so why not just say something? And she was like, well, you know, I got 2 jobs, and I've been working and doing other things and stuff. And I said, but bro, anything could have happened to you. Like, I'm thinking you're out here, you know what? And then what? Like, I'm the only person you really have out here, because during this whole experience, she didn't make any friends. All she had was me as her friend and whoever she was dating, and then co-workers, and but she ruined all those relationships. That's a separate story. But anyway, she says to me, well, you're not my mom. And I made sure to talk to my mom, so my mom knew how I was. And I'm like, okay, I know I'm not your mom, but your mom doesn't even live in this state. If something were to happen, I would be the one that could get to you quicker. So why are you talking to me like that? And so then she was like, well, you know, everything is squashed. We're good. So tell me, how's everything going with you and your boyfriend and stuff? And I told her, oh, I don't want to really talk about that right now. And she was like, what do you mean? So you're going to start acting different towards me? And I was like, what? Sorry, I forgot to say that, you know, this conversation was on the phone. She was like, you're not going to tell me? And I'm like, no, I just don't want to talk about that right now. What I want to talk about is why you disappeared for an entire week. And she was like, well, I told you I had things going on. My phone needed to be fixed. I was working and blah, blah, blah. And she was like, so you're just going to act like that? You're not going to tell me anything? You feel some type of way? And I said, I'm telling you, I'm fine, but my stuff is not as nearly as important as me, you know, trying to get you to understand you can't do that to people. You can't just call and text them when you feel like it and then just disappear like that, especially when you don't know anyone out here like that. And so then we started arguing again, and I hung up on her because I was like, I don't have time for this, like it's too much. And so she texted me and she's like, wow, like you're really tripping, like I don't know why you're acting this way. I don't know why you act like you can't tell me anything. And I was like, whatever, I don't even care anymore. And so I said, you know, all I was trying to do was check in on you. And she was like, well, you're sitting here and you're harassing me, and I don't know why. And I said, wait. And this is through text. I was like, wait, say that again. And she's like, what are you talking about? I said, use that word that you just used. She said, what? What did I say? I said, look in the text, stop acting dumb. I'm harassing you. I said, you literally disappeared for an entire week without notifying anyone who actually lives in this freaking state. And I'm harassing you. And then the big kicker is that I didn't mention this entire time is that she also had mental health difficulties, to the point where there were moments where she would say inappropriate things and I'd be like, no, don't talk like that. Like, oh, I'm, you know, in a very dark place and I don't know how to get out of it, and, you know, stuff like that. I won't go into further details, but it was like, for you to have been in that state throughout this situation, and for some of it, I really can understand that's not cool that you would tell your friend these things and then disappear like that when anything could have happened to you, whether it was caused by you or someone else. And so after she said that I was harassing her, I said, you know what? You don't ever have to worry about me ever again. And so I stopped texting her. I blocked her. I was like, I'm cool on her. And to be honest, like, that was the ultimate, like, betrayal, like mental betrayal for me. I felt like drained was so hell bent on maintaining something that was once close to me that I did everything I could to protect it. So I did it for a selfish reason, but it backfired on me because she never had pure intentions for our friendship. I'm not saying that everything was bad. We had moments where we laughed and, we confided in each other and ugly cried and things like that. She's not just this horrible person, but somewhere along the way she changed, and I didn't want to see it. And so I allowed her to constantly contact me and, you know, use my resources, knowing that it affected me because, for one, she could never reciprocate that energy, and for two, because I don't think she wanted to. But because I was like, oh, she's from my hometown, I don't have much support out here. This is someone who used to be cool back in the day. We're having difficulties, but it's temporary. My biggest problem that I'm still working on today is that I'm so focused on history. History means everything to me, when I've got to learn that history doesn't owe me anything. Just because I've known someone for so many years doesn't necessarily mean that they have my intentions, my best intentions at heart. And that was one of the lessons that I've learned from this. And so, I won't lie to you all. We did have one more interaction after that several months later, because I'm not gonna lie, I was able to look at her page, her Facebook page, and I saw that she was sneak dissing me, saying all type of things as if I was at fault and she was in the right. And I did tell her, like, you better hope I never see you again, and I'll just leave it at that. Not my proudest moment again. I don't plan on doing anything, but it was just moments of hurt, like, wow, in the end, I'm the bad person when I was here for you since day one and you did this to me. And so I'll just leave it at that. But now you see why I say I was drained. I was, and half of it was my fault, and I can take accountability for it. Or maybe it was more than half. You might think so. And I'm not going to argue with anyone on here about it, because at some point we've all fallen short in this matter. Maybe not to this degree, but I've definitely learned from it. And I've learned to set healthier boundaries and, be more caring towards myself when I recognize that the energy is not being reciprocated. So that is my story.